Hi all, and welcome to the Saudi Football Fanatics channel. And thank you for joining. This is our 11th episode, and I'm here with András today. Hi, András.
Hi, Jula.
So you may have noticed that we are only two here because Mark is absent.
I noticed. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the reason? What's the reason for this?
He got us with the reason that he is sick and he's away due to illness. You know, some footballers also are away on illness.
And what's the real reason?
The real reason I don't think is illness, because if you check footballers when you see illness, they're probably transferring away to a new team. But hopefully, Mark is not transferring away to a new team. But you may recall that he claimed in our last episode that Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, is out of the Africa Cup. Sometimes we make both predictions which go our way, but this is a factual issue, so these are facts and not predictions. Ivory Coast is probably winning the tournament while we speak. So I think he's away because he's ashamed, but hopefully he will be back in our next episode and give us some explanations on this error. But anyway, let's not mourn him now. Hopefully he will get well soon. We wish him well, and he will be with us next time. We have a lot to talk about, and we try to get through the topics quickly. So, what should be our first topic?
I know what should be our first topic. Probably our listeners also interested in that topic. There were some friendly cup games in this mid-season tournament, let's call it that way, when Al-Hilal and Al-Nassr, currently top two teams of the Russian Saudi League, invited Inter Miami, to participate at this free team tournament. So there were 3 matches. Al Miami played with both of the Saudi leagues mentioned, and finally this closed the question, which some of the football listeners or football
let's
interested
just call them clones. I think it's maybe the best way to phrase it. Yeah, I know where we are going. There were some. I really can't use any friendlier words. Some clones believe that the U.S. Football League is much stronger than the Russian Saudi League, and they come up with several type of numbers. Well, we have now the fresh numbers in our disposal, and the fresh numbers are Al-Hilal versus Miami 4-3 and Al-Nassr versus Miami 6-0. And don't forget that these matches were played during the Asia Cup, and especially Al-Nassr was hit heavily by the absence of the Saudi national team players. So I think the question is closed. The Russian Saudi League is much stronger than the US one. Sorry, American brothers.
Both Al-Nassr and Al-Hilal showed actually courtesy towards Inter Miami by showing up with the B team as their first team players. Many of them were participating still at the AFCON or Asia Cup, and still, honestly, I thought that it will be a close match, even a draw or something like that because of this. But even the B team was much stronger than Inter Miami, and yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk about this anymore. I mean, it wouldn't be serious if we would compare these two leagues.
Looking at the result, we can see that if we talk about Al-Nassr versus Miami, especially the score line, it's not that friendly. It's quite humiliating.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. Even without Mane, Cristiano Ronaldo, even without the Saudi first team players, 6-0, it's kind of humiliating. Even if we are talking about a friendly match, this doesn't look good for David Beckham and his team.
Well, not at all. And I think what is probably much more interesting for our listeners, that if I understand correctly, the two big teams of the Saudi League also played against each other. And
unfortunately, yeah, we lost again. I know.
Yeah, Al-Hilal is seemingly unbeatable. I dare say that Al-Hilal is in such a big form currently that probably one of the best teams in the world. maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration, but they look unstoppable. And even during this tournament, they were unbeaten. Quite
Yeah,
quite interesting to see whether they can continue in this fine form during the league, which is about to start soon. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it seems that some people say that if there is a pause in matches, then the form is going away. But it doesn't seem like that. So both.
yeah, they are very stable team. I mean, I am supporting Al-Nassr in the league, but it seems to me that we cannot find the correct answers how to beat them. Obviously, I can always defend our season in that terms, saying that we have at least won the Arab Club Champions Cup and against Al Hilal, which was our last success against them, and it was really nice. But since then, there are not so many successes for Al Nassr, and even if and Al Hilal is leading the RSL and seems like comfortably leading it, and if they are winning it, then I will be out of argument. So yeah, let's see. They
My
are very
point,
good,
my
very good.
point is that there is nothing to be ashamed about to lose against this Ahila team at the moment. They just
No,
look unstoppable. Very good
definitely
job.
not. So
Very good job by them. But we'll talk about the teams later.
yeah,
Maybe not in this episode in detail. Just a little bit of a prologue to the restart of the league. But before that, we unfortunately have to talk about the Asia Cup, and it. Let's be
yeah,
honest, it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to turn out. We made predictions about the group stages and the potential matchups in the knockout stages, and unfortunately, uh, we had to play against South Korea, which in an other dimension could be a cup final as well. And well, I have mixed feelings because obviously, well, no, I don't use the word obviously. Sorry, it's not so obvious. I think that some people predicted that South Korea is the team with a bigger chance to win this matchup. But apart from the end of the match, South Korea didn't really have any meaningful chance to seal the match. However, the Kingdom had beautiful chances and should have put out Korea of the game very convincingly. And there is well, just for the purpose of completeness, the Kingdom lost this match by a penalty shutout, and we led 1-0 right after the first half. Then in the start of the second half, a very good substitution by Manchin. Let me say that, because as soon as Al Shabaab's striker Radif came on, he immediately scored. So if you're a manager, this is what you want to see. You send in a substitution halftime, and he immediately makes a beautiful impact. But as the match progressed, the Kingdom didn't seal the match, and South Korea, let's be honest, they pushed very hard and had beautiful chances. And I think Qassar did a very great job
yes.
to to not let them score. But unfortunately, at the very end of the stoppage time, South Korea equalized, and after the equalizer, there was extra time, and both teams had a big chance to seal the match. Both of them were missed, and then in the penalty shutout, ultimately and unfortunately, South Korea prevailed. But I think what we should talk about here is the length of the stoppage time, because it's a common issue that I see recently that these stoppage times are ridiculously long, and they shouldn't have been so
And
long.
sometimes it's all right, I believe, and I like the idea to these longer injury times, to be honest, because previously there was always 3 or 4 minutes, and it simply wasn't enough. So the wasting of time during the football match, even with every act, of either with simulation or just with simply the substitutions, or celebrating the goals, it took much more time than 3 or 4 minutes. So generally I like the idea, but we have to be consequent here. During this match, there was no reason, I believe, to add an additional 10 minutes to this game. So yeah, it makes us difficult to believe that this was a right decision. I don't want to take away South Korea's success by saying that, because they pushed towards the winning, and they showed great effort, and they had much more chances in the last
Yeah,
15 minutes
exactly.
than Saudi Arabia, and they deserved to equalize, but they should have done it earlier in a normal situation, I believe. So my evaluation on this, I was not happy that we are playing against South Korea, and before the match, I would have said that, okay, if it would be depend on a penalty shootout, then I am fine with it. After the match, I can say that I am not not really on the same opinion, because actually Saudi Arabia, a bit surprisingly, but fully dominated the football match. That happened on the pitch that Saudi Arabia wanted, and this happened um, until Radif's goal, and even in the subsequent 10 or 20 minutes, I believe. And after that, for some reason, Ancelotti,
Mancini.
Mancini, Mancini, Italian expert,
Yeah, yeah.
Mancini decided to pull down the team, pull back the defensive lines, change the whole structure, which worked so good until by then, and they, he has decided to pull back. And basically, he set up a 5 defender, 5 midfielder setup. He took out Al-Dafsari, um, and honestly, I'm a bit blaming him. That's what I want to say, because by doing so, South Korea just could easily reach our penalty area every time they wanted. And I don't understand why these changes had to be made, because there was no reason. Our team didn't seem so tired or something like that. So there was no reason for that. I did not understand everything about this. And I believe we controlled the game. Mancini found out a structure which worked very, very well, surprisingly well. And until then, and until the 18 minutes, the 80th minutes, it worked very well. And then he ruined it with this change that he implemented during the mid game. And I believe that which was caused Saudi Arabia defeat. But again, I want to agree with you. I had to praise Al-Qasr's performance in the last 15 minutes and in the stoppage time. It was a beautiful, beautiful and extraordinary performance what our goalkeeper
Yeah,
did.
some real world class saves, I would say.
Yes,
Basically,
yes,
he kept his team in the match. Yeah, I don't want to defend Mancini here, but let's be honest, it's always difficult, because if you are 1-0 up, the opposition will always push the match as the stoppage time is advancing and as the last 10 minutes, 20 minutes of the game is advancing. And there's always a difficult fine line to find whether you should uh, drop in some extra reinforcements into the defense. But I am with you here that I don't really like if managers decide to just go full defense, especially not on a match like this one, where, as you said, and I fully agree with you, where we dominated the match. Why on earth you pull back so harsh? Because I understand that you want to be a little bit more conservative, but I never really understand why managers make these sort of aggressive decisions, let's call them this way, that they just do a full retreat. And it's what my experience is, that it's more often a mistake than a good decision. But and unfortunately, this was the case here too.
yeah. For example, he substituted in Garib, who I like very much, obviously as another player, and he's a very great player. But with this setup, like this 5 defender, 5 midfielder, obviously Mancini substituted him in because he hoped that he could run with some counter attacks and score goals afterwards. But he basically touched the ball 3 or 4 times until the end of the ordinary playing time, because there was no place for him. He didn't get any balls from. So I understand that, okay, he is quick, but he should have been substituted in our normal setup and normal gaming structure, and not in this changed very defensive version, which did not make sense to me. Yeah, but I don't want to speak too much about this. I believe we expressed our opinions on this. So yeah, it's a shame. I was very sad, but my last word would be that congratulations to our team here. they did very well, especially against such a strong side as South Korea. I liked the efforts very much, and only 1 or 2 minutes separated us from the next step of the tournament.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Let's just summarize that the group stage was convincingly won. No matches lost, so obviously a great performance going through the group stage in the first position, and against such a strong opponent, dominating the match for most of the time. The team did really well, and I think time is on the Kingdom's side, and it will just grow stronger as time goes on. So, yeah, I liked it too, and congratulations to the team, and we hope that that next time the success will be the Kingdoms too. All right, so I think our next topics should be transfers because the transfer window is closed, and there were quite some movement since we last time talked about it. Just to quickly summarize it, we don't want to go through each transfer, but the biggest move before this episode, I think, which we covered in our last episode, was Renan Lodi's arrival to Al-Hilal, but there were some additional big names who joined. But obviously, I think we can summarize our predictions this time. It's not a common thing, but this time our predictions were correct because of the foreign player limit. Not a lot of players arrived from outside of the league, but inside of the league, there were quite some movement, and especially Al-Shabaab and Al-Ittihad were really, really busy in the transfer window, and we can understand why, because both teams seriously need to step up in the league table. And yeah, which team we should start with? I think Al-Ittihad is the...
Definitely Al-Ittihad. They were the most active on this. They were surprisingly active, so yeah, they made a lot of changes. Because we talked about Henderson even too much in the previous episodes. But after all, irrespective of Henderson, they came out much stronger from the January transfer window. This is thanks to many loan transfers, interestingly, as you mentioned, within domestic league. They made a lot of transactions with Al-Ittihad. First believers in that part, because they loaned out a lot of players, actually 3 players, to Al-Ittihad, which are Saad Al-Musa, Ahmed Al-Ghamdi, and Hamed Al-Ghamdi.
The Al-Ghamdi exodus to Al-Ittihad. I think the fans will be really confused because they already had one Al-Ghamdi who is a stable first-team player in Al-Ittihad, and now he is joined with 2 other Al-Ghamdis. So
yeah, and interestingly, the one Al-Ghamdi who was originally with Al-Hilal already, he arrived from Al-Ittihad as well, and his name is Faisal Al-Ghamdi. But now they have 2 other Al-Ghamdis, and both are also from Al-Ittihad. These are Ahmed Al-Ghamdi and Hamed Al-Ghamdi. So it seems like the objective of Al-Ittihad is to pass away as many Al-Ghamdis as possible to Al-Ittihad. No, I'm obviously they're joking.
yeah. We will see whether they will play a part in the team, because so far it seems that only the original Faisal Al-Ghamdi is as first-team player, but we'll see.
Yeah, probably Al-Ittihad wants more rotation players now and try to increase their bench power, etc. We will see, and obviously we will comment on this when we more into the season, the second half of the RSL. Now, but in exchange for these, Al-Ittihad also acquired some players from Al-Ittihad, also on loan, and these are Harum Kamara and Abdurrahman Al-Obud. And apart from these players, Al-Ittihad did not stop. They wanted to do changes more and more and loaned out Vitinho to the other active player on the transfer market, which is Al-Shabaab, and also loaned out Marcel Tisserand, centre back, to Abha.
Abha obviously will need reinforcements in the defense based on their latest form.
Yeah, but the question is, did it worth for Abha? Because they acquired Marcel Tisserand, who is a quality player for the defense, but they also loaned out Toko Ekambi to Al-Ittihad, and Toko Ekambi was a very, let's call him a key player for Abha's season, and Abha is fighting against relegation, and all due respect, I mean, Marcel Tisserand is a great player, and that's obviously will strengthen Abha's squad, but losing Toko Ekambi will not increase their chances to stay in the Russian Saudi League for next season. Do you have a different opinion on this?
No, I'm actually very worried about Abha because going through their transfers, I do not think that they replaced Ekambi. Actually, the other transfer they made is Ibrahim Azubaidi, who they loaned from Al-Ahly, an experienced left back. So the two incomings for Abha were defenders, which they obviously need based on the number of goals they conceded. But losing their probably top player and without a replacement, they are asking for trouble, if you ask me. And I'm
worried.
Yeah. I'm really worried whether they can stay in the league. But on the other hand, if you check their matches, okay, Akambi was a really important player, but the real problem with Abha was not scoring goals. Sometimes they even surprised us with the number of goals they scored. But the problem is that they could also surprise us with the number of goals they conceded. So maybe it was worth it to strengthen the defense in exchange, even for losing the top player, top scorer. But we will see.
I disagree. Joel. I mean, strengthening this defense is not about one or two signings or players in the defense. It has to be understood structurally. So all the midfield has to take part in defense. Even some kind of forwards has to take part in defense. Marcel Tisserand will improve the team as a quality player, but Abha's defense in itself would not change. And in exchange for that, they lose Toko Ekambi, who was the class player on their side, who could do the unexpected things during a match, who could turn around the match. For example, I'm worried about them, and obviously we will closely monitor their performance, especially because Abha is this podcast secret favorite club since its beginning. Yeah, but returning back to Al-Ittihad.
Yeah, because we barely covered anything there, because the biggest names they got are still
we left
to discuss.
for the last. Yes, and one of them is Alvaro Medran from Al Tawun. Very great signing. Obviously, I hope it will not ruin Al Tawun's very, very, very strong season so far. And the other one is Seko Fofana, who is an also great signing, a regular player from Al Nassr.
Yeah, just to
loan. Yeah,
make it sure that everyone gets the message. Medran is a permanent signing, while Fofana is a loan transfer.
Yes,
and
that's correct.
Why did Al Nassr loan Fofana? I think he was a good player there, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but the most obvious answer is that I would say they want to use play Ospina in the second half of the RSL. As a goalkeeper, as a first team goalkeeper, and with Ospina playing as a first team goalkeeper, probably they will max out already the 8 players in the squad.
So that makes sense.
They have to just periodically pass away one of their foreign players, who is Fofana in this case. But as you mentioned, this is only a loan, and I believe that's intentional. Thinking about that during the summer, the capacity of the foreign players will increase to 10. So both Ospina and Fofana will have its place in Al Nassr's squad. But it's certainly a great signing for Al-Ittihad for the remaining part of the season.
Yeah, I think we can now close the Henderson saga and confirm that Al-Ittihad came out stronger from this one because
Obvious winners of the January transfer window.
yeah, I think we can see that every part of their squad is significantly strengthened,
Yeah.
especially the midfield. And the other
So
most,
let's go to Shabab.
yeah,
Shabab.
the second big name arriving from Europe after Renan loaded to Al Hilal was Rakitic to Al Shabab. I
Great
think
signing.
we can be excited about this Al Shabab team now with Carrasco and Rakitic.
We can, and it was a very clever signing, I believe. If you ask me, because Shabab's problems was actually connecting the lines between midfield and forward, and Rakitic is one of the best players around the world who could manage and provide key passes into Carrasco and the other forwards direction. And Rakitic also, the ball control skill is very significant. He's a very clever player as well. He will control the game for them, and Al Shabab needs such playmaker as Rakitic. So I hope he will be a good fit. We don't know yet. We will see in the next months. We will closely monitor it. Obviously, for me, I believe it's a fantastic signing for this blue, for this black and white Riyadh team.
Yeah, especially that he was a free transfer. So
yeah,
it's obviously a very clever signing. And let's note that there were some outgoings too. Let me just pick one here. Ever Banega is going home to Argentina. Will we miss him? I think he was.
He served his time. He is playing in Al-Shabaab, I think, 3 or 4 years now. So it's kind of an early transfer into the Saudi league. He played well in Al-Shabaab, I believe.
We will remember
now
him from his red cards, maybe.
yeah.
That's why I asked it ironically, but I probably wasn't very friendly with Ever Banega. Obviously, he served his time in the league and was an essential part of the Shabab team. But probably the arrival of Rakitic will be an upgrade on him without any disrespect towards Ever Banega.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Anything else?
I mean, no, there were a couple of other movements in the case of Al-Shabaab, but these were, let's call it, two most important. Other lever was Mo Adams to Al-Khalay. Also, Guanca is loaned out to Tavoun now. And in exchange for that, or not in exchange for that, but, filling the empty spots in the squad, they loaned Musab Al-Jubair from Al-Hilal. So that's where Al-Shabaab movements are pretty intense January for Al-Shabaab as well. I'm very excited about them. We will check. But move forward, I believe. And let's talk about a bit from Al-Tavoun, who made a couple of signings from the Yellow League.
Yeah, well, obviously the big question here is that losing Alvaro Medran, but the impact of losing him, how will it turn out? Because yes, they did quite a lot of signings, especially from the Yellow League. Also, they loaned a few players from Al-Ittihad. Who else? But I'm a little bit worried. Maybe I'm not right here, but checking the latest results, it looked to me that they really needed this pause, this winter transfer window, to recollect, because they started this season in exquisite form, but in the latest matches we saw a little bit not that Tavoun which we used to see, some draws against lesser teams and dropped points. I don't know. Time will tell, but I'm not very convinced that these loan signings will change the world. But on the other hand, one issue could have been that they didn't have enough depth in the squad, and now that they made 6 loan signing, sorry, not all of them loan signing, Ibrahim Al-Shuhail from Al-Ghamdis joined on a free transfer, and Mohammed Baker from Jeddah is also not a loan transfer. But yeah, they will have depth in the squad. This is what I wanted to say, and we will see whether this will change things.
As you mentioned, obviously the key question in the case of Al-Tawun is whether they can compensate losing Alvaro Medran or not. Al-Tawun has an amazing season so far. I believe they will manage it. I mean, they are quite. It's not unexpected that they signed a couple of players compensate Alvaro Medran, but I'm sure that these are not surprise signing for them. So they made the necessary work, the scouting efforts, etc. So I believe it's not a surprise for them. That they signed these two players.
We are not surprised. But I think we covered enough about the transfers, and time is running out. And also, time is running out until the time the Russian Saudi League restarts. So, Russian
Saudi League.
What do we expect here? What we can see that obviously Al-Ittihad had a match in hand, which they already played on Wednesday against Altai, and they also had a Kings Cup match, and they won both matches convincingly. So maybe we can say that Al-Ittihad is back on track. Well, we hope.
It seems, or we hope. Yeah,
the league needs a strong Al-Ittihad, I think. So that's why.
Definitely. The kingdom needs a strong Al-Ittihad. I totally agree. And now they were very convincing. So they defeated Al Faisali 4-0 and then qualified into the Kings Cup semi-final. And then they beat an Altai 3-0. Very strong performance on it. So these were not, not lucky wins or something like that. It's very convincing. So it's an easy expression for us to say that they are indeed back on track. And Benzema is already in training, apparently. So we will see how he will impact further on this team. So let's check. Maybe they can flip over their season so far, especially, I believe, if they could win the King Cup and they focus on that, then they could argue that, after all, this was not that bad season for them. I'm very interested in their performance in this next one.
We can highlight that against Altai, one of the goals was scored by Faisal Al-Ghamdi, but the other Al-Ghamdis were not in the starting lineup, who just arrived from Ettifaq.
One of them was substituted in, right?
Yeah, Ahmed Al-Ghamdi was substituted in. So probably, as we suspected, these loan transfers were made to increase the squad depth. As we will see, obviously, these were just the first potential matches where the Al-Ghamdi Exodus could play. So we will see. Anything else we are looking forward to on this new league match?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Oh, yeah, as we mentioned, Al-Ittihad gave us a teaser trailer for the second half of the RSL, but the RSL will only start next weekend, or restart next weekend. There will be a couple of interesting matches. For example, Al-Shabaab, who we talked about, will be tested now with this new squad, and probably now with Ivan Rakitic as well, in Kamis Musait, the home of the Damak Football Club.
And that's a real big match for them, because Damak was in very fine form.
Very fine form, and I hope they can continue as well, but also hope that Al-Shabaab will now step up, even with the help of Ivan Rakitic. For me, this is the most interesting match of the next weekend, but I don't want to cherry picking, and I can say that it will also be interesting to see whether Al-Ittihad can continue their progress against Al-Riyadh, who are currently only one spot away from the relegation zone. We will see whether Al-Ittihad can continue its campaign. And also, APA may be able, that's a question mark from my side, to keep some points on home ground. against one of the league's surprise powerhouses, Al Tabun. So we have spoken about both of the teams now. It will be interesting. Al Tabun losing Medran and Appa losing Toko Ekambi. Now we will see Appa will need every point very much, and Al Tabun would need to also very much to keep their place in the best four of the league. And one other football match will be Al Hazm and Al Fayha, and this will be very interesting in terms of relegation, as these two teams are actively involved. We can see, say, especially Al Hazm in the relegation battle. So
But
for me, these are the most interesting matches to focus on.
I would also mention Al Nassr versus Al Fateh, because we have seen that Al Fateh is a very dangerous team.
Yeah, but they
department.
lost. You remember that they kind of lost momentum in the last couple of matches. In December period.
Obviously, but I wouldn't just relax in the place of Al Nassr because of those attacking players Al Fateh have. Especially dangerous. So
why I not highlighted them is especially because Al Fateh was one of the teams which was kind of easily defeated by Al Nassr previously. And also, I don't see that Al Fateh is on the right track now. So, but maybe they can prove me wrong here.
Yeah, but basically, I have to agree with you. But Abha versus Al Tabun is really a very interesting fixture to see. Whether the loss of those key players you mentioned will be felt on the respective teams.
One of the most interesting matches.
In light of the winter transfer window, it's definitely one of the most interesting matches. And on the other hand, I would also be interested to see how this probably new look Al-Ittihad will fare against Al-Khalay, because there was some movement there. It's interesting to see whether the team will be ready to integrate the new signings and work properly. But let's say that nothing against Al-Khalay, but they haven't been in a great form. So it's probably a good match for Al-Ittihad to test a new setup here and not risk too much against Al-Khalay. So they will see whether Al-Ittihad will be able to start winning matches, which they obviously need very much. But we also will have the King's Cup here. They're also running out of time, and it's time to move to the Q&A session. Where we had a question from a fan, which I think it would be fair from us to answer before we close this session. And the question was from Balázs Gomkötő, who wrote this. I'm curious about your opinion on the near future of the national team. Do you see some young, promising Saudi players who can be key players in the next years? What do you think?
Yeah, great question, and also important for the national team. Let's see. The current squad of the Saudi national team is not really young, to be polite in this respect. Maybe the younger players consist of Hassan Tambakti. He's already 25, and maybe Saud Abdul Hamid, who is playing for Al Hilal. He's 24 as a back for the Saudi national team. His role will be interesting with Al Hilal because now as Renan Lodi arrived for the position of Al Shakrani, and it will be interesting whether Al Shakrani moves to the right back position from the left back position, or Abdul Hamid will keep that place. We will see.
Yeah, we saw that during the friendlies we covered against Miami that Al Shahrani played on the right back position, so that's why we raised this question.
But obviously at that time Abdul Hamid was still with the national squad on Asia Cup. So we will see. The most promising talent in the current squad is, in my opinion, Abdullah Radif, playing for Al Shabab, 21-year-old forward, and we already talked about him in this podcast because he scored against South Korea, very important goal. So he's a rising star he will have a great future in the Saudi national squad, I am sure. But let's talk about those players who are not yet selected into the Saudi national squad, but there's a high chance that we will see them in the green jersey in the future. One of the most interesting prospect, I believe, is Tal Al-Haji, 16-year-old player for Al-Ittihad, already got 7 minutes of playing time. 16-year-old playing for Al-Ittihad squad. Yeah,
quite nice.
And we are talking about Al-Ittihad, and to answering this very good question, I can say that it seems that Al-Ittihad is the powerhouse for young talents now in the Saudi League, and I will just argue why I believe this is the case, because they have a lot of young players who are already getting playing times, significant playing times. There is Ahmed Al-Ghamdi, 22 years old, but even much more younger talents already playing for Al-Ittihad occasionally, such as Farhah Al-Shamrani, who is a 17-year-old attacking midfielder. Significant to mention, important to mention, significant playing time with Suwailem Al-Manhali, who is a center back, 19 years old. He only played 2 matches, but will play more and more, I'm kind of sure. And for me, one of the most interesting prospect with Al-Ittihad is Marwan Al-Sahafi. He's an attacking midfielder. We can say that he's a regular player now, even played 4 matches in the Champions League. And he already got 1 assist also for the team. So Marwan Al-Sahafi, 19 years old, is one player who we'll mostly sure see in the green jersey in the upcoming years. So Al-Ittihad is a real powerhouse. Very interesting prospects are there.
Yeah. The future is bright in Jeddah.
Yeah, it seems, and actually, this is a very important work, and you have to thank Al-Ittihad for this work, because by providing playing times, not only minutes, but kind of regular times for these young talents, will surely improve the Saudi football.
Yeah, this is an important question, even from the perspective of the Russian Saudi League, because of the exodus of the foreign players. There were always returning questions whether the Saudi players will have enough playing time. And as you could see during the Miami matches, especially in terms of Al Nassr, that a completely different team steps up if the European players are away. Even if the Saudi national players are away, there is a second tier list of players who should play. Probably not a very polite way to phrase this, but I think you will understand what I mean here. So yeah, it's important that Al-Ittihad steps up in the development of Saudi young talent. It's also very good for the league and for the national team as well.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, but I think we have spent enough time talking about a lot of topics.
Sorry, yeah, you sorry, just don't want to don't want to exclude Al Fateh's work either from this league, because they also gave us for the Saudi football Saad Al Sharfa, who is a 19 years old forward, and I wanted to specifically mention before closing this episode, because he already has 2 goals for Al Fateh. So Saad Al Sharfa is also a player who is very promising, and Al Fateh also provides playing time for Ali Al Masoud, who is a 20 years old attacker. So answering these questions, answering the question, we had to include these players as well.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously the short answer to the question is yes, we see a lot of players who might come through and be involved in the future of the Kingdom's national team. There are probably more interesting topics which we could talk about, but we have already covered
one more for sure, Gyula. One more for sure. And sorry for interrupting you again, but we promise that we will not leave this out. Just a quick announcement, so we don't forget it. That for the 2024 West Asian Football Federation's Women's Championship will start very soon. It will be held between the 19th and 29th of February. It will be hosted by the Kingdom, especially, and Jeddah will be the home of this tournament, which is also a huge milestone to the sport life of Saudi Arabia. And also I want to mention that apart from the team of the Saudi Arabian team, who obviously we will support and hope for the success, the participants will be Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Palestine, and 2 guest countries, Guam and Nepal. So we are looking forward to this tournament, and I just didn't want to leave this out. Sorry, but now it's your time to close the episode.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will have to make a separate episode on the rise of the significance of sports activities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and once we have time, we will cover it. But now, as you said, and as I tried to say it several times, it's time to close this episode. So one more quick thing here that you may have noticed in our social media accounts, that we finally have a new logo, and our branding is finished. So have fun checking our new look social media logos and profiles. And thank you for listening to this episode, and we will be trying to support you with much more and probably much more interesting episodes in the future, as the Russian Saudi League is going to go back to full speed soon. And as we mentioned, a lot of interesting matches will be upcoming. We look forward to it, and you should look forward to these matches too. But we have talked enough, especially me. So thank you for listening to us. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms, and hope to see you soon. Cheers.